Colton, I am so excited about today's show. Are you excited about today's show?
I am pumped, man. I've been excited about this all morning. I was like going through all the stuff, looking the stuff up. Really excited about our great guest today.
Yes, I am excited as well. And I've got a question for the men out there. Have you ever felt stuck? Have you ever felt you've been in a spot that you're just stuck, you can't get unstuck, maybe in your faith, your finances, maybe your family? Well, today's guest also used to be stuck, and now he's absolutely crushing it. Last year, he was actually teaching middle school band, and today he's coaching men all over the world in 11 different countries on how to become the dad that their family does deserve. He is the founder of the global men's brand, Rising Father, and his coaching program, Men of Fire, is a high accountability program and mastermind for men. Please welcome onto the show, Chris Rodack. Yes.
I love it. What's going on, guys? That was amazing.
Thank you.
Welcome
to the show, man.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Well,
we're happy to have you.
I think you got one of the best sets of any guest we've ever had. I mean, this thing looks amazing here. I guess you got a little cropped in there. Look at this one. There you go. Much better.
There we go. Look at that.
Yeah.
That is an awesome set, my man.
Looks great behind me. In front of me, you have no idea what's in front of me, but behind me it looks really good.
That's the only important.
That's what matters.
Exactly.
That's what matters. Well, I'm curious. Tell us a little bit about your story. From all the research I've done, your story. You were unstuck as a young man in your 20s, your early 20s. You were fit. You had, everything was going right. And then you kind of drifted a little bit, and then you got unstuck, and that's kind of your success story and what you help men to do. So tell us a little bit about your background and about your story there.
Yeah, and feel free to cut me off whenever you want. But yeah, I grew up in a big family. I have 8 brothers and sisters in 𝗬𝗢𝗢𝗓𝗦𝗢𝗢, Pennsylvania. Very religious family, Catholic. We 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom house. We said the rosary.
Wow.
Every night. Yeah, so there's a whole bunch of stories there. But went to college for music. Fell in love with the saxophone. Fell in love with my band class. Became a music teacher. Became very good at the saxophone as a professional saxophone player. And so I went all in on that. I can get very addictive and obsessive with things. So went all in on being a saxophone player, music teacher. And I kind of lost my health a little bit as I was getting into my first position. So before I had my first job, I was out in Salem, Ohio, and I was living by myself. And I don't know if you remember this old Beachbody routine called P90X.
Oh, yeah.
But there's this old workout called P90X. So I did that. It was very challenging. So I did that.
It's a good workout. It'll get you.
Yeah. I did it three times in a row by myself. I got shredded, had an 8-pack, looked great. But I was also by myself. No kids, not married, living with one other dude. I would meal prep all my food. And then
I talked to my wife about that season a lot. I'm like, man, if I look back at that time, like I wasted so much time. I thought I was really busy back then. I remember being like, man, I got a lot on my plate. I'm starting this. Now I look back, I'm like, how did I not take over the world with how much time I had?
I know.
Like I should have written books. I should have climbed Mount Everest. Like I had so much time back then.
That's it. So I got in great shape, and then I got married. So I went on a honeymoon, went to Sandals, Jamaica, this beautiful 5-star resort, first time ever. So I went from, 2-bedroom house with 11 people being at this resort. So I was like, oh my God, I'm going to eat and drink everything. So I did. And I gained 10 to 15 pounds in 1 week.
Wow.
We came back. Yeah. We came back from our honeymoon. I had kegs of alcohol left over from our reception. I had all this food, and we were both teachers. So I had 3 months of doing nothing. So at that point, because I wasn't hired yet, so we just ate and partied every night for 3 months, pretty much. By the end of that summer, I think I gained 20, 25, 30 pounds. And I tried to get, and I noticed that there was a day where I noticed what I looked like, and it was only 4 months prior where I was shredded in the best shape of my life. I was like, oh man, you got to get back to here. And I tried, and then 10 years went by. And I could never get back. I could never get back to that point. I completely changed as a person. I lost my discipline. But when I was at Salem, Ohio, when I was working that job, before school started, I was doing an hour-long P90X, sometimes 90-minute workout. I was meal prepping my containers to food. I would take them to school, ignore all the other people who were making fun of me. Then I would get home from work and I'd jog 7-8 miles. I was so disciplined.
Yeah.
And then now I'm married, living with my wife with a different job, what I considered my dream teaching job. And I couldn't do any of that. I could not force myself to do it at all. So
Yeah.
I had all the same nutrition plan. I had the same workouts. I had all the same information, but it was me who changed as a person. And it took me years to be able to get that back.
Now, I'll show a picture here because you hear stories and you're like, no way, no way, no way, all this stuff. But like, look at this. I mean, it was huge. And this, you talk about this being like kind of like your lower 30s and just the dramatic change. Like we obviously see you on the show here, but then, if you click through on the carousel here, I mean, this is a different guy. This is a totally different guy. It's the same guy. And I'm so excited to hear about this journey and how you did that. But like even your eyes, like your eyes look like a different person. It was a dramatic change there from low 30s to, I think you said you're 36 now. I mean, that's a pretty dramatic change there. Yeah.
Whenever any of the guys, and you can see like that on my profile there, that Kenny, he just transformed with us. That's under 4 months that he did that. The biggest change you can see in people when they make these changes is like their body. But like their face, they just have a completely different look in their face, like their smiles, their eyes, the fire comes back. So many guys, when they first join us, talk about, I feel like I'm living in a fog. I feel like I don't feel any emotion. I have no passion, no fire anymore. And everything is just so foggy. And that's it comes from a lack of pushing yourself, no challenge, nothing like that in life. And as soon as you can get back to this and become a savage again, then you get some of that fire back in your face.
Men were meant to be savages. And I think when they're not savages, they decline quite rapidly. It's amazing how fast that can decline, and when you just lower yourself to whatever's comfortable. I think there's a massive push, whether you're watching David Goggins or watching, any of the great, there's this massive push towards even like cold plunges. I feel like are more of a reaction.
Yeah.
Like I've heard Andrew Huberman talk about the benefits of the cold plunge and the health benefits, and it adds years and does all this stuff. And I'm like, if nothing else, it kicks your butt. If nothing else, it turns you into a savage. If nothing else, it's something you don't want to do and you got to do it. And in a world where, I'm currently on carpet, and my world's very flat. I would never have to touch the grass if I didn't want to. In this world where you can change the temperature by 1 degree without chopping any wood. In a world where you can go 60 miles an hour down a road to get to wherever you need to be. Like in this world where you don't have to walk, we actually have to monitor how many steps we're getting in. Things like you can actually afford to be lazy today. Lazy people were called dead people 100 years ago because you couldn't live. And in today's world, we're quickly adopting into this new world where men don't have to be men. And I think when men don't have to be men, they just drift. And Andrew said drift inside your introduction earlier. And I think that's the definite word there. So you had the drift. But what was it that kind of caused what was the cold plunge in your life there? Like you talk about your journals. Like obviously there was a lot of speed bumps along the way. There was a lot of exit ramps that you looked at and kind of kept driving past. What was the one where you were like, okay, no, tomorrow's gonna be different. This is like, what was that moment? What was the snap? Or what was it? Maybe not even a moment. Was it a season or something that caused that change? What was that went from 32, promises in the journal to promises kept?
First off, I love what you said. Lazy people were dead people 100 years ago. I wrote that down. But there was a moment and there's also a season. There's also a phase. So the moment was kind of disgust. And Jim Rohn talks about getting to a point in life where you say enough, where you say it's never going to happen again. And I remember looking at a picture of myself holding my baby boy. We were at a fall festival on a tractor ride, and everything is going great in my life. I've got the job I wanted. I'm married to a beautiful woman. I've got the baby boy who loves me. It's a beautiful fall day. And I look at my face and I'm depressed for no fucking reason, for no reason. Like I look miserable. Why am I unhappy? And it's because of who I became. It's because what I allowed myself to crumble to. I was fat. I was undisciplined. I completely lost my identity because I used to tie my identity to my habits and who I was. And man, I'm confident, I'm disciplined, I'm strong. I can give to the world, but I just started chasing comfort. And I saw this picture of myself. I said, man, why am I so unhappy? And I'm only 29, 28, 30 years old. I have a lot of life to live. What is my son going to think when he's 10 years old and he has a dad who's unhappy?
Wow.
I do not want to be an unhappy dad. So that is a moment that I recognized is looking back at that picture that I saw. And then what happened, COVID happened. And one of the things I've always wanted to do in my life was join jujitsu. And it was one of those things that I always said, like, I'm going to do jujitsu. I just never did. So I wrote down in my journal, I think when I was 29 or 30, I said, by the time I'm 32, I'm going to blank, do these things. And doing jujitsu was one of those things. So there's a gym, a great gym right by my house that I've been driving by for 20 years. All I had to do was call.
Wow.
But for 20 years, I didn't call and set up the free class. So I finally decided to call and set up the free class. Fell in love with it, got my ass kicked for thousands of times, just got destroyed over and over and over again. But I also loved it so much. And it's such an amazing cardio session. It's just a great, so just the pure fact that I loved it and the convenience of going and burning so many calories, that helped change me and get me in shape. Then I started losing weight. Then I wanted to be stronger to compete with other people. So I started working out more and I wanted to, then I started eating better. And I started drinking more water. And then I reached out to coaches and other programs and actually did these intense programs to help me supercharge it. And then I did that and created my own thing.
That's good. I love how you said that you drove by that gym every single day, and I think as men, a lot of times we get in that fog that you mentioned. That a lot of your the people that are in your group here, your mastermind, they start off by saying is they're in this fog, and they do drive by the gym every day. They drive by that gym every single day, but they're in this fog, and I think a lot of men, a lot of people think that they're almost too far gone. Even if they are young, even if they're in their 20s or in their 30s or 40s, they think, that was the past. Being in shape was in the past. So like, how do you change? How do you get out of that mindset? Or maybe what did you have to break there to understand that, it is possible to go back. It is possible to get back into shape and kind of break out of that fog.
It can happen in a moment. It can, because the longer you procrastinate something, the bigger you build it up in your head. You create this monster that's not there. It's, I thought joining jujitsu was going to be this huge thing. It's no, you just have to walk in the door, lay on the ground and let someone choke you. That's all you have to do. And then you're doing jujitsu. It doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be this big thing. And same thing with guys this morning on our call, we were talking about conversations with your wife you're afraid to have, and you let that build up for weeks and months. And it's really, you can solve it in 1 second. So literally, if you feel like that right now, 1 second from now, you can feel different. You can have your fire back if you just stick your face in some ice water. Just do that. You have a cold plunge, fine. Go fill up a bucket of ice water, stick your face in it. You will feel great. You'll feel amazing. You'll hurt. And then all of a sudden you'll feel on fire for a second. That's all it takes. And then you need to make that connection between suffering, pushing yourself, and how you feel afterwards. So you just have to force yourself to do the first thing. For me, that first thing was jujitsu, and then it was waking up early, which was extremely hard for me. And then when I was able to wake up early and be at the gym early, 4 a.m., 4:30 a.m. at the gym, that was hard as shit. And I looked at myself and said, man, I'm a badass. Yeah. So you have to do something to prove to yourself that you're a badass, that you're or you're constantly doing things every single day to prove the opposite. Yeah. If you're constantly sleeping in, if you're constantly drinking when you told yourself you wouldn't, if you're constantly skipping out of the gym when you told yourself you would, if you constantly aren't sending those emails whenever you told yourself you would, every single action you're taking, like James Clear says in Atomic Habits, are votes for who you are. So you're telling yourself, I am weak, I'm someone who doesn't follow through, and I am dying. That's what you're telling yourself through weak actions every single day. You have to prove to yourself every single day that you're a savage, that you have your fire back. And it doesn't have to be a huge thing, just a small thing over and over again and compound it.
Dude, this is so good.
It's so good. This. It's like there's a quote Tim Ferriss has that says a person's success in life can usually be measured by the number of uncomfortable conversations he or she is willing to have. And in business, like in management, it's so true in like business world and everything, but it applies perfectly with what you're saying here, but to yourself. Like your success in life is completely dependent on the number of difficult conversations you have with yourself, not even with other people, but with yourself. And I think it's a great thing. You do have to wake up every morning, have that tough conversation. But I really do love what you said, like just making that first decision and get in the gym, just go there. That's great.
I think that's super huge. One thing I've always found is that success leaves clues. And there's on the outside here that you can see these changes that you're talking about. But there's little things you're saying along the way that I'm like, there were some habits already in place. Like maybe on the outside, you weren't fully, like you weren't the savage that you are today. But you're talking about journaling. Like journaling is a skill, is a habit that I think very few people actually have, or these ability to like mark things, these ability to, like the rivers running by and their ability to like pull off to the side every now and then and just think is not something you see very often. You mentioned like Jim Rohn, and you've already mentioned James Clear. Like my dad respects Jim Rohn about as much as any human that's ever lived. Like my dad told me we were almost in a car accident when I was 8 years old. We hit some ice and spun out. And my dad made me promise him two things. He said, number one, you'll always stay in the church. It was not even a religious thing. He just said, if you stay in the church, I know you're not going to veer too far off. Like you're not going to be, drugs and strip clubs if you're also going to church on Sunday. Like always stay in church. But number two, listen to and consume everything that Jim Rohn has ever made.
These are the two things.
Those are the two things. He's like everything else you'll kind of figure out if you kind of stay with those two things. And I think if you're putting good stuff into your head, eventually you're going to have good stuff coming out. And like I feel like if I just poke you right now, the good stuff's going to start coming out. When did that start? Like, did that start in this journey as well? Like were you also like, I'm also going to read, not only am I going to do jujitsu, but I'm going to read 10 pages per day, or I'm going to do, like, when did you become a student?
It came out of desperation. I was probably 7-8 years ago. I was in a really negative spot in my job personally. And I started to write down how negative I was. And I said, man, this is not, and I would read whenever you journal, you can see what you're thinking, because otherwise it's just a vague, your thoughts can be feelings. It's kind of like blurry. You see like the semblance of words and phrases, but whenever you start to journal it down, you say, oh, that's what's going on in my head. You think, I didn't realize I was so fucked up, or I didn't realize, hey, there's some wisdom in there. And you can totally get these feelings and ideas that you've been wrestling with for weeks or months. They leave you once you put them on paper. So I started doing that, I don't know, 7-8 years ago. And then I said, man, I'm very negative. I'm very down on myself. I need to fix my brain. So I think I Googled positive affirmations or something. I found Tony Robbins first. Yeah. So I listened to a bunch of Tony Robbins, started listening to positive affirmations. Tony Robbins led me to Jim Rohn, listened to tons of Jim Rohn. And then I wanted to quit my job and start an ad agency. So I did that, hired a business coach. He referred me to a bunch of books. 𝗧𝗢𝗓𝗦𝗔𝗍𝒩 is a life-changing book. Listened to that one probably 10 times. And I listened to this. I just started consuming and reading books and podcasts and listening to people who I wanted to think like them. Like if I want those words and actions to come out of my mouth, if I want to be like this person, then I'm going to listen to what they want to say, because I know that my own natural tendency is to be negative and extremely judgmental on myself. I'm my hardest critic. So if I'm only left to my own dark thoughts, I can only become me. Like I can only become me if I'm not allowing anyone else into my brain. So that's why I have to fill myself with these other thoughts. And then I started going into Buddhism and all the Eastern, like Asian, like Thich Nhat Hanh and all these guys. There's just so much wisdom. And then the more I consume, the more I can help people with. The more I fill my brain with that, the more I can help my kids and I can help my clients and all these people. But it started because I needed to fix the soundtrack that was going on in my brain.
Oh, such a good term for it. So soundtrack in your brain. I love that.
I love it. It's almost like, it sounds like almost like game film, or if you're running a business, it's like if you recorded your calls and went back and listened to them, your journals, it's kind of documenting what's going on in your head, in your life. How often, like myself, I keep, I've got a little stack of them right here. I call them I don't know if you can hear me. I call them my man books. They're every one for every year. And every once in a while, I'll pull them out and I'll just kind of go through them. How often do you go back through and like review your notes? How often do you do that?
Well, I switched to this remarkable tablet, which I would highly recommend.
Cool.
They should sponsor me, but because I'm obsessed with it now, and it has it's like a digital. It doesn't connect online. It's just a digital notebook. So. I'm taking notes now. So every day I go back through the past couple days' notes. And I would say once every few weeks, I'll revisit some old journals. Is that what you mean? Like older journals?
Yeah. Like every once in a while I'll pull up like one from a couple years ago, and it's kind of good to just pull it out and like review it and read where I was and make sure that I'm getting to where I wanted to go.
Okay. So I do that for content and also to, yeah, there it is. And also so I can relate to guys who are where I was, because I'm in such a different place right now. I can forget the pain I was in. So if I go back and read 6-7 years ago, my journal entries, oh my God, that was going on in my head. That's what's going on in guys' heads right now. And then I have to revisit that pain. If you've ever read the book, The Giver, it's kind of like that. It's like hearing these messages and memories again and enveloping yourself in them. So I have to take myself back to that dark place and say, man, this is what guys are feeling right now. What did you need at this point in your life to get you out of that? And then I try to recreate that to help guys.
So guys that reach out to you, they go to 𝗧𝗢𝗙𝗢𝗓.com, and we'll pull it up here as well. But they go to 𝗧𝗢𝗙𝗢𝗓.com. They're reaching out to you. You have lots of different like on-ramps into your world. You have like a podcast. You have a blog. You have these Men of Fire conferences, Men of Fire program conferences that you guys just got back from, which looks unbelievable. I mean, I think there's definitely a hunger for men to have that brotherhood. Like you hear like men in the military, and they're like, everything we did like absolutely sucked, but it was like some of the best times of my life. You know, you hear like, you know, just these times, and I think you're kind of creating that type of world with these conferences here. A 6 a.m. cold plunge, like 39 degrees outside, water temperature 47 degrees, guys jumping in. Like that is not something organically just like left to our own device. If we're, I love your term you said earlier. You said following comfort. I don't think if you're following comfort, you're naturally going to end up in some of these environments, but you're creating hard environments. But men that on ramp into your world, like they're coming from a spot. And they're like, okay, I'm complacent in this area. I've been following comfort for too long in my diet. I've been following comfort too long in my fitness. I've been following too long in comfort. I'm not reading the books that I should be. I'm not thinking positively. The soundtrack in my head isn't playing what it should be. What's kind of your first like step ones? Like, how do you put paddles to somebody's chest? Like, what's kind of your move to give them that moment and then that phase of changing to have a more disciplined life?
It is doing, you've heard this many places before, but it's doing small things over and over again. And honestly, the first to get a guy like that to move, because I also say we take weak men and make them strong. We take weak, indecisive men and make them decisive and strong. So a lot of that is having massive perspective on the repercussions of your actions. Because many guys go through life with horse blinders on or their head buried in the sand. They don't understand the implications of their actions. I'll occasionally have a call with a guy who's 350 pounds. He's got 5 more years to live. He's an alcoholic. He's addicted to drugs. His wife is on the verge of divorce, and he's smiling and very happy. So I'm saying, why are you so happy? Your life is ending right now. And they just don't understand it. You know, some guys just do not understand the implications of their actions or the way. If you continue your current actions with your wife, you will be divorced in 2 years. How do I know that? Because I have guys in my group who are divorced who say they started where you are. You're like, me and my wife haven't had sex in 2 months. Or, okay, well, it's going to be 6 months. Then it'll be 2 years. And then you're going to get a letter in the mail saying you're divorced. And most guys say, I thought the marriage was fine. Whenever that first letter comes. So I have to, if you're a guy who's stuck, and you're like, what's going on in my life right now? You have to look at your wife. You have to look at your kids, your finances. How are your actions going to snowball 5 years from now? This is the perspective you need to have. And this is what I take every guy through. 5 years from now, if you made no changes, what is your life going to look like? This is one of the activities we did at my men's retreat. Around the fire, I said, write a eulogy from your son's perspective. If you made no changes in your life and your habits got worse, what would he say to you?
That's tough.
Yeah, it's real tough. Guys were crying. We were all saying this to each other. Like, so if you continued these abusive habits, what would your son be like, rage screaming to you? And we all had to read that to each other. Then I said, wow. Now, if you made all these changes in your life that you have to make to be the best man you can be, what would your son say? Like, my God, I love my dad. Thank God for him. He changed my life. So you have to have that deep understanding of your current actions and how they're going to affect your family to give you the inspiration to act. Then you act. Then you have to act. You have to do something. It could be joining a program, joining a group, waking up early, whatever it is. And then you just have to do a small thing over and over again and not look for shiny objects. You have to not be run by emotion, and you have to do the boring, consistent thing over and over again, because you're going to get complacent. You're going to want to quit. You're going to want to stop. And what's more impressive than flash in the pan motivation, inspirational moments like a 30-day fast or doing 75 hard and then binging for 3 weeks is sticking to a macro plan, sticking to a nutrition plan, and going to the gym every day for 30 days straight. You do that, I'm impressed.
Huge.
That's great.
Huge.
Love it. So how important would you say is it for people out there, like you say, like the macro plans? It's consistency that's the importance of your diet, of who you spend time with, how often you're going to the gym, making sure that you're getting enough training done. How important is it that you spend your time around other men who have the same goals, who are on the same path as you are, versus hanging out with guys because it can be tough if you are on a mission and have a path that you're on, but everyone else around you is not on the same path. They're still on your old path. How important is it to make that tough decision and just kind of pivot who you spend your time with and the guys you hang out with? How important do you see that being in your program and everything and with all the guys you work with?
That's one of the most important parts of every man's transformation in my program. And one of my transformation was giving outside voices a spot in my brain. And that is through books, podcasts, talking to people. It's also through real groups like brotherhoods, like the program we have, the other guys speaking to you who are on the same path as you. Like this morning, our call, we had 23 guys on the call, all high-level successful guys. Why are we there? This isn't just neighborhood guys. These are guys from 11 different countries who want to be the best men and fathers they can be. So in today's topic I just said, what are you struggling with? And each guy had to raise their hand and say what they're struggling with. One guy was 4 guys were struggling with their marriage, lack of intimacy, blah, blah, blah. So if the first guy raises his hand and says, I'm struggling with lack of intimacy, the second guy will raise his hand and say, yes, so am I. I did last year, and this is what I did to get past it. Guy 3 might say, I feel like I'm about to get divorced from my wife. This is what's happening. And then guy 5 will say, I was in the exact same spot. There is hope for you. This is what I did to get past it. So by having a brotherhood and other men, you are able to find solutions for your own problems. It's different than going to a therapist. I've got guys who've been to therapy, but say, this is like upgraded therapy. You're not doing a Zoom call with one guy or a lady who's just out of college. These are people who are in your life situation who are telling you how they got through it. The other thing is just filling your head with positive voices of people who want the best for you. You're not pulling yourself down with your own negative thoughts once again. Yep. You have people who want to see you become your best. They will call you on your bullshit. They'll call you when you're being lazy. They'll tell you if you don't post your accountability, they'll say, hey, man, where are you? You're supposed to post today. Yeah. Not because they're being mean, because they want to see you become your best. Yep. The best thing I can want for you is for you to become your best. So sometimes we need to push you. So it's extremely important.
Huge.
Love that. That's great.
I think a lot of times when men are struggling, like they see this version of themselves that's better, and they're like trying to get up this hill, but it's all muddy and it's slippery. And I think the traction that they need is that accountability. I think that's what you definitely provide with the Rising Father program. I think that's huge, that there's that accountability, there's that weekly. You give them the mountaintop experience, and I think that by mountaintop I mean, like the experience of like, okay, now we're pulling aside, we're 100% immersing ourselves in a concept for a couple days here, but then they can get out and like then there's when you get back, how do you start implementing those simple things and creating that accountability? I think that's huge. Question I have for you, like there's these really cool. Like there's this stuff with the men, and there's stuff with fitness, and there's some stuff here with finance that you've said. But inside of your marriage, like your wife watched you go through this transformation. She was married to the same Chris this entire time. And in this process of watching you go from, just talk about your marriage there. Like she watched you, start out P90X, and then the transition, and then the promises, and then this Jim Rohn, James Clear, this version of like the mental. The fog is clearing, and then the fitness and the jiu-jitsu. And now like she's watched a massive transformation, but married to the same Chris this entire time. How is your marriage transformed through this process as well?
Well, she's amazing. And she would tell you, I always looked amazing. She would say, I've always loved you the same. You've always been, she would just always say that. So she's incredibly supportive, but I know that I've showed up differently throughout this process. Because there were times when, like we talked about this morning on our call, we weren't intimate for months, maybe 6 months at a time. Why did that happen? Because I felt bad about myself. I was selfish. I was so concerned with my own problems, with my own failings. I wasn't being a leader anymore. I wasn't serving. I wasn't giving. I was saying, woe is me. Look at me. I'm fat. I'm undisciplined. What happened to me? So I was just so obsessed with myself and my failings that I was not focused on the other people. So maybe that's the biggest change, is the more I started giving and serving and helping other people, the less I started focusing on myself, and I was able to improve our relationships for my wife and my kids. The more I focused on building myself and going to the gym, eating healthy, being disciplined, the more I was able to pour myself into the marriage. So as I leveled up and as I became a better person, as I respected myself more, became more disciplined, loved myself more, I was able to love my wife more and able to focus on her more. Because whenever you are in a super down, depressed spot and you go to sleep at night knowing you left so much on the table and your years are slipping away from you, what are you doing? You're just obsessing over yourself. You're just thinking about yourself. So you're not thinking, okay, what can I do for my wife today? What can I do for my wife tomorrow? How can I make her feel sexy and flirtatious and beautiful and like a princess? You're not thinking about that. You're only just thinking about yourself. So the more you allow yourself to decay, the more selfish you become. So I built myself so that now I can focus on other people and provide energy instead of being an energy taker.
Oh,
that's so good.
So good.
That's so good. You like, I love what you said there. Like, you fit not only physically and as like in strength, but like mentally and emotionally, you built yourself up so you could carry your family. You could bring them along with you, and you weren't focusing on yourself. I love that. I think that's great. The impact that your fitness and everything has on your marriage and on your family, I think fitness has a huge impact on your kids, especially. What would you say the impact is, like being in shape versus being fat, not being in shape? What does that impact have on children? Your children, like the time you spend with them, their future, their kids. What impact would you say your fitness makes on your family?
If you're listening to this and you're out of shape, you might be offended and you might feel some pain, but that's good. Don't run from it. You're going to, and I needed to feel that pain. And through pain is massive transformation. If you ignore pain, that's whenever you start to eat. That's when you start to drink. That's whenever you try to numb the pain. So feel the pain of your situation and use that as motivation to help yourself, instead of running and grabbing a Snickers. And that's what I used to do. So here's the perspective thing we're talking about. You have to understand that your kids will become you. It's not just a colloquial saying. They do. Do they repeat your words? Yes, of course. When your kids start to talk for the first time, what are they saying? They're repeating words that they heard you say. They have your mannerisms. They have your tone of voice. They have your energy. They also take on your emotions. I was a teacher for 15 years. If there was an obese student, 99% his dad was obese.
Yeah.
Okay. If there was a kid who was sloppy, his parents were sloppy. If there's a kid who was on top of his shit, disciplined, turned his stuff in, he was in shape, his dad was the same way. His mom was the same way. It's not maybe, it is. You can't bury your face in the sand. It's a hard, painful thing to think about, especially if you have a kid who's 10, 12 years old, a little bit older. And to accept the fact and the story and the burden that you are crippling your son for the rest of his life. That hurts. It's painful. But you can either make a change right now and fix the rest of his life, or you can tell yourself that it's not true and screw him for the rest of his life. Yeah. And a lot of guys do that. A lot of guys, the mirror is so painful to look at, they create a false story to heal their ego. They say, no, it's okay that we go to McDonald's every day. No, it's okay that I'm obese and my son is. It's not my fault. And then our kid's 18, then they're 21, then they're 50, and they hand their battles and burdens off to their kids. And just because it makes them feel better in the moment, they are too scared to face the reality of the situation. And that is that they are crippling infinitely their legacy. That's what happens if you allow to be unhealthy and to have these bad habits. That's what happens is you give your bad health, you give disease, you give lack of self-love, lack of self-respect. What happened to me whenever I was fat and undisciplined and sloppy. I was emotional. I was impatient. I was unpresent. Whenever you hate yourself, you are not present with the people you love around you. All of those things. It affects your relationship, your marriage. It affects how you are as a business owner. It affects your employees. It affects your ability to create an income. And if you do not fix yourself, you are handing all of that to your children.
Man.
So that's painful to look at, but it's true.
Yeah. It's painful. And I think a lot of, like, I think you used the word anesthetize earlier, and I think that's a good term for it. Like, if you're feeling that pain, a lot of guys reach towards it, whatever it is, whether it's food or drink or watch a TV show, or I'm gonna watch this next movie, or I'm gonna go over here. They anesthetize themselves from that pain versus feeling that pain. That pain is supposed to prod you. If you have a light on your dashboard in your car and you just smash out the light, that doesn't fix whatever the problem was. The light was telling you was supposed to be fixed. If you turn off the bulb, it doesn't change the fact that there's still an electrical problem in there. There's still something wrong with the car. Actually, funny story on that. My wife and I just got our car back from the mechanic. Her start-stop feature. It's like she's got this newer car that, like, it stops whenever you come to the stoplight, starts again. And we hated the feature. Well, it said that the start-stop feature wasn't working anymore. There's a light on her dash that said start-stop. And I was like, sweet.
Perfect.
That's awesome. Great. I'm so glad it's not working right now. Well, all of a sudden we went out to her car the other day and the battery didn't work. And I'm like, we had to jump start her car and took it in. Well, it turned out that there's one battery in there called the actual battery or something like that. It was a certain battery in there. And that battery was meant to regulate the start-stop feature. When that stopped working, it was pulling it from the main battery, which killed the main battery. And I'm like, okay, if there's a light on the dashboard, no matter how insignificant you think it is, you gotta address it. And I think that's what's so cool about what you're saying here. If you're feeling the pain, don't hide from that. If you're feeling the pain, address it. If you're feeling the pain, don't hide from that pain. Like address it. And I think Rising Father, go to risingfather.com, check out what he's got going on, listen to his podcast. But if someone's wanting to, like, on-ramp quickly, they're like, okay, I get there's a podcast, there's a blog, but like I want that I want to be part of that 23-man group. I want to be part of the cold plunge on Saturday morning when it's 39 degrees outside. I want the fast track inner Chris world. How does somebody get on-ramped into that? What's the move there if they're wanting to fast track this thing?
They just send me a message. Send me a message on Instagram and say, hey, I want to join your program. I'll say, okay. 1 hour later, you can be with us. So we have our community is virtual. And like I said, it's 11 different countries. So we've got over 100 guys in there now. The retreat that you see, that's where we had, I think 20 guys from 3 different countries flew in. And then our Zoom calls, we have people all around the world. So we'll get 20, 25 guys a call on that, which is good.
That's super.
But yeah,
cool.
just send me a message.
Love
when
it.
you get started.
Shoot a message, get over there. Don't just sit in the pain, but do something about it. I think this is a great option for someone that's wanting to get on fire. They're wanting to see that better life. Everything you're talking about so far is not just it's not just getting fit. It's becoming a better dad. That's one of the reasons we wanted to have you on this show. There's a lot of, like, fitness guys, and we try not to ever just have, like, oh, now you're fit. I'm like that fitness is a chain reaction that every area of your life gets better as well. If you start putting good stuff into your brain, like you have the marriage piece, you got these different pieces. So risingfather.com, guys, go over there, check them out. Go to Rising Father on Instagram, and Chris is a great follow. Chris, thank you so much for coming on the show today. We really appreciate it, and I really hope you get thousands of new alpha dads inspired. One of our missions with the show is to inspire 10,000 dads to step up and be alphas in a world that's trying to push us into be betas, and the world that's trying to push us towards more comfort. I think you're a great ally in the alpha dad fight. So really appreciate you, sir.
Yeah, this is amazing. Thank you, guys.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, and I'm here to tell you about my new product from MyPillow, towels that actually work. Watch this absorbency test. Here's another towel that we randomly went out and bought. Here's one of my towels with the nice design. I don't know if you can see this, but you could line a swimming pool with this. I mean, this is crazy. Get rid of it. Towels that actually work. What a concept. I'm interrupting this commercial to let you know you can get our 6-piece My Towels, regular $69.98, now only $29.98. Or you can save 25% on our brand new kitchen towels, made with the same technology as our famous My Towels. Also, we have bath sheets, bath towels, washcloths, hand towels, and so much more. And the best part, with your promo code, your entire order ships absolutely free. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use that promo code to get deep discounts on all My Towels. And for a limited time, your order ships absolutely free.
Oh my goodness. Did you like that story with Chris there? Was that good or what?
That was incredible. That was probably maybe not the top, but one of my favorite episodes there. He had a lot of good just nuggets of wisdom, his story, his past, his program that he's got, everything just incredible.
My dad always told me, he said, if you want to shine in public, you work really hard in private. And you can tell that's a guy that's worked really hard in private. Like whenever you poke him, I just feel like good stuff's going to come out. You can, if the raw essence, if you're going to boil Chris Rodack down to his raw essence, it's like, it's good stuff. It's good material. It's
wisdom.
It's wisdom. Yeah. He's got a lot of good wisdom, hard earned wisdom in there. I love it. It's good stuff.
Oh yeah. Oh, so good. So good.
All right. Speaking of mining and finding good wisdom, we got some reels out there for you guys today. We're going to do some reactions for you guys today. These are things you guys have sent us, things that you guys think you want to hear our reactions to from culture from around the world. And it's one of my favorite parts. Andrew, are you ready for this, sir?
So ready. Let's do it.
3, 2.
I remember the first time I heard this, it changed my life. So a guy was on stage and he gave this whole presentation about learning skills and about how you have to invest in yourself to get better, right? And he called somebody in the audience and he said, and as he's saying this, he's doing what I'm doing. He says, ma'am, how much money do you make right now per year? She stood up and she said, $50,000 a year. He asked the lady, he says, okay, so what would make you not want to invest in this? And she says, well, I don't have the money. And he said, you probably don't have the money because you've been paying a really expensive bill every single year. And she's like, what do you mean? He's like, well, right now, you've been paying $950,000 a year, not knowing how to make $1 million. He said, this is the cost of your ignorance. This is the debt that you carry for the rest of your life until you learn how to make $1 million.
Wow. To the point. What do you think?
That's good. That's good. No, it's great. I think a lot of people, they get stuck in where they're at and they don't think, kind of like what we talked about with Chris here, is like they get in a fog, they get in a funk, they get stuck. And they think, oh, this is really all I can have. I can only make $50,000 a year. This is my ceiling. This is my lid. This is where I'm at. And that's it, but they don't realize, but that if they take, maybe some of their $50,000, some of their income, invest into themselves, learn, maybe they pay an expert, maybe they pay somebody to teach them. They can learn how to make a lot more money. There is a lot more to go. There is more past where you're at now. Just because you are, older, maybe just because you don't have an education, you can still achieve so much more. I love it. I think it's great.
Every now and then, someone that can just stretch your mind. If you could pay somebody, like some people you come across and they give you advice for free. Some people, they cost this much. Some people cost this much. But I think investing into the education process, and especially with somebody that can stretch your mind of what's possible, stretch your skill sets of what's possible, stretch what you're capable of. If you are a bodybuilder and you put on a toddler's t-shirt, that t-shirt's never going to be the same again. Just from the process of getting put on somebody that's so much larger than the capacity that shirt originally had. And there's people that can do that to your brain of what's possible. And if you can get around somebody that stretches your brain like that toddler t-shirt, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not gonna be the same. And you can give them a portion of your money in order to learn how to make $1 million, it's going to stretch you and you're never going to be the same again. And once you get to that new level, it's like, man, I am a different person. Like we saw with Chris, he's a totally different person today than he was at 32, at 31, at 30, and at 36, he's changed his life so dramatically. You can see it in his eyes. If you can find mentors like that, they're worth their weight in gold.
And even if it's like a program like Chris's, or if it's like a financial coach or a financial mentor, like what you're paying for, you're not just paying for the thing. You're not just paying for the book. You're not just paying for the course. You're not just paying for the maybe the session. You sit down with the person. You're not paying for that. You're paying, and you're not even, I don't even know if you're paying for this. You're paying for the years of pain and learning that they went through. And I don't even know if you're paying for that. I think you're paying to not go through the years of pain and to go through that. Like you're sacrificing, frankly, even if it's thousands and thousands of dollars, you're sacrificing a very small sum of money to not have to go through the pain, the suffering, the 50 years of figuring it out on your own. You're just paying a small fee and getting your life, because you only get one life. You do only get one life. So if you stick to trying to figuring it out on your own, then you're gonna run into a lot of roadblocks, a lot of bumps in the road. It's gonna be super tough. Or you could make the sacrifice, pay the small sum of money in the grand scheme of things, and get the mentorship that you deserve and your family deserves.
So good. He was referencing like Jim Rohn and James Clear, and you know I both are mentored by Clay Clark. I got his book right over my shoulder here.
That's right.
How to Become Sustainably Rich. And I remember talking to my dad when I was in like 8th grade, and he said, you're the CEO of your own life. You're the CEO of your own life. If you're the CEO of Coca-Cola, you take an inventory every year of where your company's at and where you're going to go this next year. You got to set your goals. You got to set things up. He said, but a lot of people don't recognize they're the CEO of their own life, and they take advice from people that aren't where they want to be. They're getting health advice from people that are smoking and overweight. They're getting financial advice from people that are broke. And he said, what's crazy is in life, like a lot of times people are willing to give away their best stuff for close to free. I mean, you can buy one of Clay's books here. Clay's multi-millionaire, gajillionaire, very wealthy individual. Probably one of the wealthiest individuals I know, truly. And he gives away his books for, $20, $30, $40. You can get copies of his book and learn everything he had. I was showing you beforehand, my dad, before we started recording here, my dad talks about Leading an Inspired Life. It's a book by Jim Rohn. It's one of the top books. Like if you ever get that book from my dad, like you've made it in his eyes. Like you're somebody that he respects. You're special.
That's
and
right.
You can buy the entire bundle of everything Jim Rohn for like $79, including that book.
Amazing.
For like $80, you get that knowledge. Like it's the raw essence, best stuff delivered to you. And I think if you can get for pennies the best education there, get those shortcuts. I think it's a massive shortcut in life, and it helps you get ahead. I think it's huge.
That's right. Love it.
All right, number 2.
Let's go.
No one ever tells students why they should write something. It's like, well, you have to do this assignment. Well, why are you writing? Well, you need the grade. It's like, no, you need to learn to think. Because thinking makes you act effectively in the world. Thinking makes you win the battles you undertake. And those could be battles for good things. If you can think and speak and write, you are absolutely deadly. Nothing can get in your way. It's the most powerful weapon you can possibly provide someone with.
The ability to think. What are your thoughts?
Good. I see what you did there. No, it's so true, and I think it's what a lot of adults do to children is just do it.
Yeah.
Well, why? Oh, no, just do it. Well, if you sit down, and my pastor taught me this, if you sit down and get on your kid's level, like physically, get eye to eye with them and explain what is happening, doesn't matter how old they are, 1-year-old, 2-year-old, just like talk to them. Just get on their level and then like explain, this is what's going on. This is why, here's what's happening. Just communicate. Communication is key. And here's why you need to sit here and be still for the next 15 minutes. Here's why, as they get older, here's why you need to write this. Here's why you need to read this book. Yep. And just communicating and explaining, I think is key to getting somebody to understand why they're doing something. But then like just thinking and writing and reading in general is becoming more of a past thing. Because now it's just about memorizing. Maybe we read, but the biggest goal at the end of the day is just to store information in your brain and not to discover information, but to be provided with information from a book from somebody else who did the thinking.
Yep.
And then just store it in your brain. Don't think about whether it's right or wrong. Don't think about where it's coming from. Don't think about, just store it in your brain. And then that's how we get zombies. That's how we get robots. That's how we get these people running around all saying the same thing that may or may not be true. We don't know. Most people don't know because they haven't actually thought. But those who do think can spot it out. And like you said, they're unstoppable. They're like a superhero. They're a superhuman because they have the ability to do something that 90% of Americans of the world don't have the ability to do.
Huge. I think becoming that student is super important. And being a student is not just reading, it's also writing. I think it's interesting that Chris in today's show talked about journaling and how important that was for him along the way. And we kind of picked it out. I think you and I both kind of listened in. I was like, he's talked about journaling a few different times now. And a lot of his posts talk about reading these journals and how important that was for him. So I encourage everyone out there, go journal. Don't just consume content, but journal. And like, what are your thoughts on this? And where do you go with this? Right. And I think that's super important. The ability to think, taking time to think and think things through. I think it's super important. Good stuff.
That's it. Yep.
Next one.
All right, this is my son. He agreed to do this Instagram video. Jameson, how tired are you right now?
I'm
Okay.
very tired.
What have you been doing today?
I've been digging holes, planting plants, and spreading mulch.
That's right. We had a work day today. We've been working hard outside. It's sunny, doing physical labor. All right. So I want to tell you something to remember when you grow up and you're a man. As tired as you are right now, like exhausted, feel like you can't lift anything. We're about to go in the house. Jameson has 3 little brothers. Okay. Gus is probably going to ask me to throw the football. Hudson's going to want to tell me about his day. Your mom might still need to cook dinner or something. And guess who might have to hold the crying baby to take care of the baby? Who do you think?
Me or you?
Yeah, one of us. So you know what we got to do? We got to dig deep, find some energy, and go in there so that you can still be a good dad, a good father to the other sons that are left there. Obviously not you, but when you grow up one day, that's what you got to do. You got it?
Yes.
Oh, words of wisdom.
Words of wisdom right there. First off, a good-looking kid, sharp kid. I love. There's 2 things I really liked. Number one, the dad had his son doing physical labor with him. I think that's an important thing for your kids to do something physical, to get dirty. I think that's important. And then that's another great lesson that when you are tired, when you've given out 100%, you find that other 10%. There's an additional 10% inside of you. We're not robots. We're not. I got this iPhone here. When the battery dies, it's dead. That's all it had. It's done. And I can't just like, come on, work a little harder. I know you got it in you. As men, there's an extra 10%. There's that extra. You know, I've heard Navy SEALs talk about when you've gotten to the bottom of everything you got in you, you're only at 42%. There's another 68 still to go, or 58 still to go. I found it as a dad that is in there, and I think it's our role to pass it on to our kids. That when you've given out all you got, there's another chunk in you, and I think it's important, especially they're sitting in the car before they walked inside. That is a good time to remind yourself. Like I have like a mental reminder when I pull into my garage to change who I am, to like become the dad that I want my kids to see me as. And I think that's an important thing. It's a washing of your mind, changing your mind, whatever you need to do to step into the house to be the fullest version of yourself. I think that's super important. Dig deep.
So good. Yeah. And Chris, the guy, who we just interviewed, he's got some great stuff on social media talking about this exact same thing of when you come home after a long day of work, the dad that your kids get after you come home is who they're going to remember. Like that's who they're spending time with. You don't know what happened throughout the day. You don't know if it's been a good day, a bad day, what's been going on, if they had a good day at school, if they're going to school, at home, whatever. And then you come home, and if you come home and bring your stress on everybody else, then that's when they grow up, they're like, oh, my dad was always stressed out. He was always upset. We spend most of our time on the couch together. That's really all we did. That's the biggest memories I have versus, oh yeah, no, my dad and I went out on Saturday and we went to church and helped plant a bunch of trees and flowers around the building. We helped a neighbor. We went out and rode our bikes. We went out and rode go-karts like one of our guests, loves doing. And that's the memories that I want my kids to have when I come home, So I think it's important. And I love what you said, like you have a reminder. I'm like thinking in my head, I'm like, man, I want to hang something up in my garage. That's like, maybe it's a kid's artwork or something like that. But like right when I pull in and I look through the windshield and I see like, all right, okay, cool. It's time to find the extra 42, 52%, whatever you said, and kick it back into gear and go inside and have some fun. But no, I love that video. That's great. Good wisdom from that dad.
I'll track that down, but it really was a study. Like there was a study about like how much energy someone has, and like when they physically feel like they've completely depleted themselves, it's shocking how much more they have to give. That's why David Goggins, talks about these kind of things a lot, because he runs like ultra marathons without being an ultra marathon guy. Now he's famous for running and stuff, but like when he was doing it, he was a power lifter. He was a strong like bodybuilder type guy, and he starts like these long runs, and he like broke his ankles and his Achilles. I don't think these are things you want to be doing, but man, there's always more in you. And I guarantee you got an extra 5%, 10% to give to your kids at the end of the day when you get home. But speaking of giving, we're coming up on Father's Day, and this show is brought to you by 𝗦𝗢𝗢𝗢𝗢𝗢, one of our favorite alpha dads, Mr. Mike Lindell. You can go to 𝗦𝗢𝗢𝗢𝗢𝗢, use promo code DAD, and get up to 60% off on mypillow.com. Great stuff over here. For Father's Day, make sure you go get your dad something great over here from mypillow.com. They got throw blankets. They got one of my favorite things, honestly, I love their PJs. I actually wore their PJs last night. Where's that at?
Oh, nice.
Let's go to the PJ section. Men's PJs. Like,
oh yeah, look at that. Hoodies?
They got hoodies on here, all kinds of stuff. But this is my favorite. All right. This is what I challenge you guys to go get your dad this year. Go get him some cool looking PJs. Every guy out there wants those cool PJs. Like
fancy.
every guy wants to be kind of the tip of the hat, you know, like the 1950s, you know, when they wore cool stuff. They wore suits. They looked good. They were sharp. Get your dad something that looks really cool. These are really, really, really nice clothes. But it's the kind of thing like you can go check the mail in your nice PJs. Like that's a thing. There's a thing out there.
Nice slippers.
In your nice slippers from _𝗦𝗢𝗢𝗢𝗢𝗢.com. But I wore this last night. It is an incredible PJ setup there. Go get your dad something awesome. And with promo code DAD, it's $110 for this item normally, but with promo code DAD, D-A-D, it goes down to $60. So really, really top of the line.
It's a good deal.
PJs, but something that anybody can get because it's mypillow.com, promo code DAD.
That's right. And go check us out on Instagram, Alpha Dad Show. Go check us out there. We're posting all sorts of content, long form, short form, all sorts of great stuff up there. Little clips, snippets, previews, all sorts of great items there on Instagram and on YouTube. Go check us out there as well. We've got a growing following over there. We're uploading shorts, all of our long format content, everything up there as well. So you can get your Alpha Dad fix on YouTube and on Instagram.
And we will see you guys next week.